Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wilson Creek. Welcome to Gerry's celebration of life. Hang on. Yeah, there will be plenty of that because you know what? Let's do that one more time and do it with gusto. Here's to Gerry. And to all those that are out there in the live streaming that couldn't make it here to the frickin' COVID, let's kick it in the butt, and hopefully 2021 will be a much better year, and we can get together in group settings and not feel guilty about it. And so you guys are out here. We had to limit the amount of people that we had here because we can only social distance 500 people. And so trust me, if this wasn't COVID, there would be a heck of a lot more, and we would have welcomed that, and because Gerry touched so many lives. So again, thank you guys for braving the elements. Thank you guys for coming out here, braving COVID, and thank you for helping our family celebrate the life of a very wonderful man. And with that, I'm going to just read a little caption in page 186 of the Wilson family story that my brother did such a great job in writing this. So give it up to Mick for that one. But it's, what do you want people to say at your memorial or celebration of life? And Rosie says, I hope people would say, I was a kick. And Rosie, you are a kick. So Gerry says, I'd like to be remembered as a person who loved his wife, loved his family, and loved his country. Check, check, check. And this is the most important part. He said, keep the funeral part short and the celebration long. Have a good party because it's a celebration. So we got a couple speakers, we got some family speakers, and we got a light, not a light, it's a dinner afterwards. We got thank you for the quartet over here, thank you. This is highly illegal to have a live music, okay? So that's about the only time we're really breaking law because we are outside, we are social distance, and we are wearing our mask when we're not outside the table, right? So please wear your mask because the last thing Gerry would want is anybody to have any ill effects from being here or having this to be a super spreader event. He wants everybody to celebrate. He wants everybody to have fun. He's always said, I just want you to have a big old party, and we're having a small one today, and we're going to continue in his honor to do a symphony. Pops every year is kind of what's on the plan. So that's kind of going to be Gerry's swan song every year that we're going to remember him for that. Couple items. We have a barrel over there. It's an American barrel because that's the way he would want it. He wouldn't want a French barrel over there. And go ahead and sign that barrel. We're going to make wine out of that barrel until its useful life, and then we're going to put it out here in the courtyard for an everlasting memory of Gerry. It's going to be one of those things. So do that. Take your time. It'll be around for a while. With that said, and keeping the funeral part short on my part, I'm going to introduce a guy that I love to death, and I shouldn't even say death in this setting, but I love him in life. He's my brother, best friend for life, Mick Wilson.
That's my bro right there. I'm Mick. Thank you for coming, and thank you to all those live streaming from over 20 states. It's incredible to see the influence that Gerry had on everyone here. We all have a story, don't we, about how he's impacted our lives. And Gerry has been in Temecula for 25 years, and it's incredible to see the impact that he's had on this valley. It's like yeast. When you add a little bit of that to a batch of dough, it transforms that and it rises. Or you add a little yeast to some basic grape juice and it transforms into something beautiful, a great glass of Cabernet. Wherever Gerry went, he always had influence. Even when he was young with his family, he had influence. He grew up in the Midwest. And I just talked with his brother Bill last week. And his brother Bill said, Gerry was my hero. Profound. He went to University of Minnesota. He was leader of his Air Force ROTC program, of his class. He was also president of his fraternity, Beta Theta Pi. And with a campus of 35,000 students, he was elected and chosen as the homecoming king, appropriately called in Minnesota the Snow King. And classmates later, when I talked with them at a reunion, they would say Gerry was a big man on campus, but of course he never understood that, never understood all the attention. He married Rosie in 1954, and they moved to a small town in Minnesota called Austin. They started a family, and of course he became a leader in the community there and in his stock brokerage business. He preached often at his local church, and he was so loved and appreciated that people came around him and wanted him to go into the full-time ministry, into professional ministry. And Rosie said, no way. She said, there's no way I could be a pastor's wife. Some influential political leaders met Gerry and saw his personality and popularity, his passion for his country. He was very astute in his politics. He understood the Constitution, and they wanted to back him and sponsor him for politics. But he and Rosie couldn't envision splitting time between either St. Paul or Washington, D.C. and their family, because that was their priority. Gerry quickly became successful in business. He was known for a man of utmost integrity, warmth, and compassion. People trusted him. Colleagues and clients alike said that he would come in the office and just care for them and ask about their family and how they're doing. And even starting this winery, we went through some brutal times financially. And to watch him weather those storms, and the thing I learned about him in business is that in the long run, integrity wins. In 1970, we as a family went from Minnesota to California. Good move. My father-in-law, Ernie, says, who I am is what I create around me. And Gerry created around him in that home in South Pasadena this hospitality center, this place where anyone can come and feel welcomed and loved and appreciated and valued. We had dinners with people from all over, people who needed family, people who needed a warm hug or a hot meal. And then in 1995, he and Rosie contemplated retirement. Bill, Libby, and I had moved out and started our own things in California. Rosie and Gerry were considering Solvang, up near Santa Barbara, wine country in the Central Coast. They're going to get a little house in a vineyard and maybe join a country club and try to lower his handicap. And then my brother Bill called Rosie and Gerry, and Rosie picked up the phone, and Bill said, hey, you want to buy a winery? And Rosie said, hey, are you crazy? And they talked about this winery in Temecula that might be for sale, and Bill said, well, why are you so hesitant? We used to make rhubarb and dandelion wine in your basement in Minnesota. And Rosie said, making wine in plastic trash cans does not qualify us. But Gerry and Rosie loved the idea of regathering the family. After months of investigating Temecula for an option, we ended up buying 20 acres here. Gerry sacrificed his hard-earned retirement and went all in. At 65, he went for it. He went for it, yeah. Why did he risk it? Why didn't he just retire and go to Solvang and live the good life? I think part of it is when I heard him speak at a banquet at his church that threw a going-away party for him and Rosie in '96. He said, this new venture is a family affair. One way or another, we are going to make it work. For him, it was all about family. But I think something deeper was going on. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount says, people don't light a lamp and put it under a bowl Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the room. It is as though God lit this lamp called Gerry Wilson and thought, this light is too good. It needs to be planted in Temecula on a pedestal, raised up at this winery that will be the pedestal for thousands to see. So Rosie and Gerry moved down in 1996, and Libby and Craig and their family, and Bill and Jen and their family, and I followed after that. Gerry jokingly called us boomerang kids, because every time he tried to launch us in the world, we keep coming back. And I moved because the wine business, yeah, that was intriguing, but I wanted to be with my family, and I wanted to be with my dad. We had a rich history together. We were book friends. In high school, I caught his contagion, his appetite for reading. He was a voracious reader. And he would read a book, I see his excitement, he'd give it to me, and I'd read it, we'd get together and swap back and forth. And through the years, we read hundreds of books together. We traveled together. Deanna, me, and Rosie and Gerry, we landed on an aircraft carrier and catapulted off the deck the next day, going 0 to 130 in 2 seconds. Gerry's 70th high school reunion in Minnesota, we were able to go with him to that. Yes, 70. We were able to accompany him to Washington, D.C. He so loved our country. We were able to go to the West Wing. And we co-hosted numerous European wine cruises together. And of course, on these ships that hold about 150, at the end of each week, half the ship was best friends with Gerry. And almost every Thursday night, I had the privilege and encouragement from Deanna to go up to the house on the hill with a good bottle of red. And we would sit down and open that bottle and just chat and laugh and reminisce. And I left so enriched from those times. There's a saying that when kids are young and they grow up and they see the real parent, that when they're young, they put the parent on the pedestal. But as they grow up and see the real parent, that pedestal collapses. For me, just the opposite happened. The more I saw Gerry interact with people in my latter years, the pedestal just got bigger and it got taller. Why? I saw his humility, his gentleness, his grace with everybody. We would have meals over at the Courtyard Bar or in town, and people would come up to him. And he was never interrupted, so to speak. He loved engaging them and would talk about them, and he would appreciate them. He's a man, when he walks into a room, instead of saying, "Here I am," he says, "There you are." C.S. Lewis says this: humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. We would never come away from meeting a humble person thinking they were humble. The thing we would remember is how much they seemed to be totally interested in us. I saw this humility when he was recognized over and over. He got Father of the Year award, Citizen of the Year, Winery of the Year over and over. He and Rosie received the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010. At his acceptance speech, Gerry thanked the community for embracing our family. He thanked other wineries for helping us get started. And he then said, "My greatest achievement is my family." He said, "I'm so proud of every one of them. In fact, my kids do all the work and I get all the credit." I saw his sacrificial love 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer, and thankfully has since been treated. At the time, I didn't know if it was terminal or metastasized or whatever, and Gerry kind of felt that burden, and through many conversations, we wrestled with it. This one conversation I'll never forget. He looked at me in the eye, and he quietly said, "If I can take that cancer into myself, I would." And he meant it. I saw his heart and his priorities right here about a month ago at our 20th anniversary and Rosie's 90th birthday. He insisted at the end of the evening that he grab the microphone. We wanted to honor him, but he wanted to honor someone else. To him, that night was not about the brick and mortar and the success of the winery. Yeah, that was important to him. But for 8 minutes, he honored Rosie, talked about how they met, how he lights up when she walks in the room, and how she is the most beautiful woman in the world. And I sat right there and looked at him and I said, "Now that is a man." I saw his contentedness just 3 weeks ago up at the house. Deanna and I had some friends in town that knew Gerry. We went up there and they asked, "Gerry, how you doing?" He said, I'm doing great. My kids and great-grandkids all live within 15 minutes. I drive 2 minutes to work in a golf cart, and I get to meet the most amazing people every day. He said, I'm living the dream. Where did this joy, this contentness, this humility come from? I feel it's just more than a nice personality and being a good guy that gets you so far. Something more powerful was going on. It clicked for me years ago. I was rereading the passage in 1 Corinthians that Paul was writing to the church in Corinth, the one you hear a lot at weddings, where love is patient and love is kind. And Paul is saying a person who knows they are good with God, they don't need to strive to try to please God or to show off to others. Because they're good with God, they can naturally just focus outward. And I thought to myself, who's like this when I read that passage? And it dawned on me. So what I did is I took that passage and scratched out the word love and put in the word Gerry. And I want to read this and see if this clicks for you. Gerry is patient and kind. He cares more for others than himself. Gerry doesn't want what he doesn't have. He doesn't boast about himself. Gerry isn't puffed up with pride. He doesn't demand his own way. Gerry doesn't fly off the handle, and he keeps no record of being wronged. Gerry does not rejoice at injustice, but he rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Gerry never gives up on people, and he trusts God implicitly. Gerry is always hopeful, and he endures through every circumstance. Where did this radical love come from? May I dare say, a divine love. Jesus in John 15 says, faith in him is like a branch of a vine being connected to the trunk of the vine. Jesus says, I am the vine. I'm the source of true life and love. When you connect with me through my spirit, my character, my heart, my passion will flow through you and bless others through fruit, he calls it. Abide in me, he says, and you will bear much fruit. Later, in the New Testament, Paul defines this fruit. He says it's like a cluster of grapes. There's 9 characteristics or 9 grapes in this cluster. And if I read these aloud, as I read these aloud, count to yourself out of these 9 that are an expression of the Holy Spirit working in someone's life and God working in and through them. You tell me if this fits Gerry. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. By the way, before I wrap up, can someone get me a stick? You know what I'm talking about over there? Can someone get me one of those at the entrance? Thank you. The Bible says God is love. No one has ever seen God, but when we love one another, we get a glimpse of God in that love. And I believe for me, when I saw Gerry interact with people, I got a glimpse of God. My dad and his actions show me what love is like. My dad and his actions show me what God is like. I truly feel that my earthly father revealed to me the heart of my heavenly Father. If that's how God treats people, I want more of that. If that's what God is like, I want more of that. So to remember him, I want to leave us with a little memento. This stick. I can feel the excitement. This is not a normal stick. This has the DNA and the potential and the power to create a full vineyard in 12 years. This is called a cutting. And we cut this from our Zinfandel in the back. And what the cutting is from the vine, all that power and the DNA is sealed in this cutting. And the cutting is then placed and planted. Vines are replanted not by seeds, but by cuttings. And these little buds here that normally would bear fruit actually will grow roots. Then after a couple years, this grows. The cutting is from the parent vine. This becomes a child vine. As this grows, it becomes a parent vine. It bears fruit, and you take cuttings from that and plant another child vine, and so forth and so on. Cuttings are only taken from the best of the best vines. We call them clones because you want to clone the best. And we're going to hand these out to you on the way out, and there's directions on it and how to plan it and how to store it. For those watching online, just email us and we'll send you one. Just say, I want a stick. I want a cutting. But I want you to think, when you plant this, or whatever you do with this, I want you to think about his life and his impact on you and what you saw and why that was so compelling and attractive. I want you to imagine your marriage, your family, your business with that kind of impact in it. The best way we can honor him is not just to remember him, but to live like him, to forgive like he forgave, to have joy like he forgave, like he had, and to replicate that joy. I want that kind of life. I want to be like my dad when I grow up. And these cuttings will hopefully remind us of that. My passion and my yearning is to finish well like Gerry did. The best compliment I could ever receive in life is, Mick, I see a little bit of Gerry in you. And I'm proud with my family to be a part of carrying on that legacy, being a clone, being a mini-me of Gerry. If success at the end of one's life is determined by how a person loves unconditionally and gives sacrificially, if that is true success, my dad was a giant of a man. If greatness is measured by how a person makes others feel important and special, how they value others, how they literally enhance the lives of others with their love, if that is true greatness, then my dad is truly the greatest man I've ever known. Thank you.
That was absolutely beautiful, Mick, and there's a lot of your dad in you, my friend. And this is beautiful. I mean, I cannot imagine a better place to celebrate Gerry's life, to celebrate this family, to honor this family, and honor God who gave Gerry to us all to enjoy. That's a little bit of the light of heaven every day, experiencing that friends and family connecting deeply around love and humility. It is a beautiful night tonight. Thank you all for being here. Whenever somebody we love and admire is lost, there's always two questions that we tend to ask, and I'll just briefly talk about those two questions. The first one is, how can we keep their legacy alive and well, right? Mick talked about that a lot. He's spot on, that the way we can keep someone's legacy alive and well, someone we adore, someone we love, we cherish, we admire, is to really try to emulate their life in terms of how we live. And it's an incredible opportunity and privilege that we have to try to say, okay, I see something very special in that life, and I want to try to live a glimpse of that in my own life and in my own family. Gerry cared. Gerry treated people like they were the only person on earth. When he was talking to you, his eyes were locked into you. He wasn't thinking about where I have to go next. He wasn't daydreaming. He wasn't trying to cut this short. You were the only person in the world when he was talking to you. And so in order to have his legacy carry on, let's try to be that to other people. And in seasons that are, seasons of contention because of all the stuff that's going on in our nation and community, and people are very focused on maybe themselves or their priorities, we can be like Gerry. When we're talking to another human being, our eyes are locked on that human being, and they're the only person in the world. Gerry loved his family, clearly loved his family. How can we carry that legacy on? By loving our spouse. If you and your spouse are not connecting real well, if you and your spouse are at odds and you're biting at each other and you're snapping at each other, we can use this as a way to say, you know what, I've got to take a step back here. I've got to take Gerry's life and the Wilson family as a little bit of a lesson that says, you know what, this is the most important thing. I'm gonna work on strengthening my marriage, and we can forgive each other. We can go get help. That's how we can continue Gerry's legacy. With our kids, pouring into our kids. Let's not be distracted. Pour into our kids. That's how we can live a life that honors Gerry and keeps that legacy going. I love seeing Gerry and Rosie in church almost every Sunday, and I was always shocked that they went to the last service, and you all do as well. The last service is by far the loudest and most raucous and obnoxious. And he'd come in, and even in his later months, just, kind of struggling to get in, but he was there, last service. And I always kind of wondered why he was there the last service. Well, Mick told me today why he was there. Because that's where his family was. That's where his family wanted to go. So that's where he went. And he would certainly have loved the first service. It's very tranquilo and it's quiet. He would have probably preferred to go there. But he went where his family wanted to go. So how do we live our lives in memory of this great man and to live out that great legacy? Let's live our lives for the betterment of others. Let's do what they want to do. And that way of life is so much more powerful and profound, right? It's a life that is truly well lived. We see a glimpse of God in Gerry. Let's have a glimpse of Gerry in us. That's how we can keep his legacy alive. Live for others, live for love, live for family. There's a second question that's often asked when someone we love and admire passes on. And it's this question, and it's a little bit of a stark question. Is that it? Is the journey over for them? It is a blunt question. It's sometimes an uncomfortable question. None of us like to think about mortality. And for a lot of us, we don't ask that question out loud very often. We like to keep that one kind of buried. Is this it? Is this all there is? Is this the end of our story? Now, to be clear, Gerry's story was incredible. I mean, his is a story absolutely worth celebrating and worth telling over and over and over again. And thank God it will be told over and over again through this winery and through this family. It's a great story, but still we have to ask the question, is that it? Is that the end of Gerry's story? Some might answer that question with a quick, yep, that's it. That's all there is. You live, you die, that's it. And I understand why people might think that way, because we don't see the invisible. We don't see the eternal. We don't have the capability of seeing the invisible. We don't have the capability of seeing the eternal. We can kind of imagine, but all we see is this. And so I can understand why people say, yep, this is all there is. Faced with the passing of his own father, American poet Dylan Thomas penned a very famous poem called "Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night." And in the last stanza, he says, "And to you, my father, there on that sad height, curse. Bless me with fierce tears, I pray. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." If this is all there is, that's how we should feel, is hang on to this life and rage and curse and weep because this is all there is, and just go into that night, the dying of the light. So while I understand that people might think, yeah, this is all there is, it really is something that is, it's an inescapable tragedy if that is true. For others, they're not so quick to answer this question, is this all there is, with a quick no, or yes, it's all there is, but there's kind of a vague notion that maybe there's something after this life. And for a lot of people, there's that kind of vague imagination that maybe there is something out there. Maybe there's a God who made us for something more than this life. If God, our Creator, made us once for this life, then maybe He can make us again for the next one. And we have some imagination about that. Maybe we meld into the eternal consciousness. Maybe there's a conscious self after death. Maybe there is something called heaven. And so we think maybe there's something beyond this life. Kevin Pearson wrote this poem when faced with the loss of a loved one. He says, "In your thoughts to his loved one we will touch. In your dreams we will meet. Now our hearts beat as one. I am your shadow. I'll always be close. Hear my voice in the wind, see our dance in a song, feel my warmth in the sun, remember my love, I'll always be close." Sort of a poem from beyond the grave that we imagine that we will be close. We imagine we will touch. We will touch by dreams and touched by shadows and touched by wind and touched by sunlight. These are imaginations that maybe there is something beyond this life. For others, and I know many of you here have a hope that not only can we imagine something beyond this life, but we have a hope that there is something beyond this life. And this is Gerry's hope, and I'm just going to talk about Gerry's hope. There's people here and people online from every faith background, and I want to respect that. But we're celebrating Gerry, and what motivated his life, what motivated his love, was the love of God expressed through Jesus Christ. And in Jesus Christ, there's an answer to this question. Is there something beyond this life? Gerry believed a couple of important things. He believed that Jesus was the full expression of God. So we don't have to imagine what God might be like. We see God through Jesus Christ, and we have a recording of what Jesus did in the scriptures. And I just want to urge you, if you're not much of a Bible person, just read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and ask yourself the question, are you a fan of Jesus? Just, are you a fan of that life? That kind of selflessness, that kind of love. He loved everybody. He embraced everybody. He particularly embraced the people that religious folks rejected. Jesus was all over those folks. He loved them. He hung out with them. He ate and drank with them. He was accused of working for the devil because he ate and drank with so many people that religious people rejected. Do we like that kind of life? Absolutely. Do we respect that kind of love? Absolutely. And then his message of love brought him to the cross. He was rejected by religious leaders to the point where they had enough of him and they crucified him. It was love that brought Jesus to the cross. And Gerry knew that Jesus was the full expression of God. In fact, in Colossians 1, it says Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. Jesus is the visible image of the invisible God. And what we see in Jesus is God is gracious and God is accepting of us all, that God forgives. And in 3 simple words that Mick said earlier, God is love. Gerry believed Jesus was the full expression of God, so Gerry believed God was love, and Gerry lived out the love of God. The other thing Gerry believed was that Jesus promised that there is life beyond the grave. Before Jesus, again, people were just imagining what it might be like. All kinds of ancient religions came up with all kinds of systems about what life after the grave might look like, but Jesus started filling in some of those answers. He started answering some of those questions. John 11:25, Jesus says, I'm the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after they die. Everyone who lives in me and believes in me will never die. Then he asked this question, do you believe this? And people were starting to think, they're just starting to think, Jesus, you are such an incredible teacher and you love so thoroughly and you're so selfless and so sacrificial. We're starting to believe that you're the full expression of God himself. And now you're telling us there could be life even beyond the grave. And they started to think about these things and to get excited about this possibility, going beyond vague notions, but following Jesus. And then the main event. Gerry believed Jesus actually rose from the dead, that he rose from the dead. 2 Corinthians 15 says that this is the most important thing to know, that Jesus died because of this world's desperate brokenness. The light of the love of God was crushed because this world is so lost in darkness, it rejected the fullness of love in Jesus, and he was crucified because of love. Jesus died and Jesus was buried in deep and tragic sorrow, but he was raised from the dead just like he said he would. He promised life beyond the grave, and he was the first one to live it. Now, we might think, well, we can just dismiss that as another religion, maybe a fable or fantasy, a myth. And again, I would understand that. I'm kind of a cynic at heart. But 1 Corinthians 15 goes on to say the resurrected Jesus appeared to Peter in the flesh, then appeared to James, then appeared to all 12 disciples. Then after the resurrection, Jesus appeared to hundreds of people, 500 at one time, the resurrected Jesus, eating with them, talking with them, fishing with them. Many of those people gave their lives. They were murdered, martyred, because they believed and taught in the resurrection of Jesus. The resurrected Jesus appeared to the Apostle Paul, who also gave his life for the message that Jesus rose from the dead and wrote half the New Testament because of it. There's something here to really pay attention to. There's something here to pay attention to for all of us. The reason why we are here by the hundreds, and there would have been thousands of people here if it wasn't for this COVID mess, but there are thousands of people interacting here and online. And we're here celebrating Gerry because we know Gerry loved, and Gerry loved because he followed Jesus. And Jesus promised Gerry, and Jesus promises us all that it's not just about this story. This is not the end of the story, this life. We have eternal life. We have forgiveness freely given by Jesus Christ, because God is love, and God so loved that he gave us Jesus. Gerry did say keep the memorial short and the party long, so I'm going to wrap up right here. We are not here feeling sorry for Gerry. Gerry is just fine. He is just fine. We're here because there's a hole in our heart that will never be filled by anybody, right? Gerry's a one-of-a-kind person. But he wants us to not just sit in sorrow. It is a time to grieve for sure, but don't sit in that sorrow. use that sorrow to express love for Gerry. Sorrow and tears is a way to express love for somebody. Use that sorrow to connect deeply in relationships and bear each other's burdens and give each other hugs if you're in your cohort, your pod. Right? Grieve appropriately. But then turn that also into a deep celebration, not just of Gerry, but the God who gave us Gerry. And that Gerry's life showed us just a little glimpse of the love of God, and cherish that. And may that give you strength to love. Strength to love your spouse, your kids, to love the stranger, to love the people who disagree with you politically. Yes, that's possible. It's a miracle, but it is possible. And Gerry showed us the way. I want to close with just a quick benediction in times of sorrow that could give us some strength here. May the God of hope fill you all with joy and peace as you trust in him, and that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And may the God of peace strengthen you in every circumstance with every good thing, that he may work in you what is pleasing to him, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory and honor forever. Amen. We're going to hear from Cassidy. She's going to speak on behalf of the grandkids, and just to express the heart again from the family.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Cassidy. I am one of the daughters of Bill and Jennifer, and I have had the privilege of being Gerry's granddaughter for 25 years. It is an honor to speak tonight on behalf of his grandkids and great-grandkids. This is Hayden. He's one of them. And reflect on how wonderful of a grandpa Gerry was and what a legacy he has left us with. I'd like to open with what is printed on the back of the 10-foot legacy bottle that stands in the courtyard to honor our grandparents. Rosie and Gerry Wilson have had a dynamic impact on numerous people and are leaving a profound impact on their family and many others that will last from generation to generation. They have imprinted on many hearts, immediate family and extended family alike, a legacy of grace, compassion, faith, humor, dependability, character, and love. This wine is in fact a great privilege to do just that for such amazing grandparents. Grandpa taught all of us grandkids so many lessons, but I think the most important thing he taught us was the true meaning of never-ending and unconditional love. Grandma and Grandpa spent over 67 years showing the world what a true team looks like in a relationship, and set such a great example for all of us grandkids. Grandpa also openly shared his warm heart with our family, the staff, and even strangers. I say strangers with air quotes because after a minute into a conversation with Grandpa, he wasn't a stranger anymore. He truly enjoyed listening and learning about those around him. Every time we walk around the property or even the greater Temecula Valley, we hear stories about Grandpa and how he touched people's lives with just his presence. It wasn't only his big blue twinkling eyes or that inviting smile that made people's day. One of his goals was to help people enjoy life, and a lot of times he did that through his conversations. Grandpa mentioned that he wanted to be remembered as a person who loved his wife, loved his family, and loved his country. I think we can all agree that while those three things are very true, we also remember him as a person that extended so much love beyond just those. Grandpa never passed up the opportunity to be involved in his grandchildren's lives, whether it was attending mine or Sarah's volleyball games, going to Gavin and Hayden's baseball games, enjoying many of Cambria's baked goods, or standing alongside Chris and Heather as they raised his 4 great-grandkids. He was always one of our biggest supporters. Though he was always excited about our accomplishments, he cared more about us as people and would constantly check in with us and make us feel like the most important person in that room. Grandpa influenced all of us grandkids and left a little piece with us that we will carry on through his legacy. We'd like to encourage everyone here to live like Grandpa Gerry did. Grandpa said it best when he said, "Step out of your comfort zone and do new things rather than being a spectator in life. And yes, you can make a difference. Strive to give life, hope, grace, and love to others." We truly believe that is how Grandpa lived his life, full of hope, grace, and love. Although we already miss his big warm hugs, we know that the influence he has had and the legacy he has created will impact families for generations. His faith, compassion, and graciousness will affect how we as a family love one another and treat each other generation after generation after generation. He didn't just impact us, but will impact the future generations yet to come. He may not be physically here, but he has left all of us with a lifetime of memories, life lessons, and most importantly, each other. We love you, Grandpa.
Whoa, pretty bright right there. My name's Craig Johns, and I'm actually the husband of Libby, who is Rosie and Gerry's daughter. She's right here in the front, my beautiful bride. So I want to start off with something a little bit different. I'd like to have everyone, if you could, get a little fresh air and get a little freshness in your legs. If everyone could just stand up, please. If you can, if everyone could just stand up, that would be amazing. And we're gonna have people sit down in order of the year, how many years you knew Gerry. So if you knew Gerry 5 years or less, please sit down. 10 years or less, please sit down. 20 years or less, please sit down. If you are sitting down, please look around. Take a look. How many people knew this guy for so long? Just an amazing man. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. Where's Bill? Where's Bill? Next year. Sorry, I had to do that, man. 70 years. 80 years. So I want us to all, right now, big round of applause for Rosie Wilson, who's just an amazing person. They had the honor and the blessing of being around each other for all those years. Rosie, you're an amazing person. You should stand back up, Rosie. Stand back up. What an example of a shining star right here. Well-educated, well-spoken, well-read, an amazing partner for life, and an amazing family member who supported everyone for all these years. Thank you, Rosie. Woo woo! So I actually had not planned on speaking this evening, and then a few days ago, I received some texts back from some folks that we invited that weren't able to make it. And I asked Mick, I said, do you think it's possible I could spend maybe 5 minutes just acknowledging some dignitaries who sent some encouraging words for Gerry and the family? So that's what I'm gonna do. So the mayor of Temecula, current mayor of Temecula, Marianne Edwards, and the city council are actually interviewing 80 commission candidates tonight. So she was not able to make it tonight. She said, I am so sad that I won't be able to attend. I would like to send a note with some thoughts, if that would be meaningful to you in the family. You may share them publicly or privately as you wish. Gerry was a wonderful family patriarch and a perfect example of all that is Temecula, in quotes. I'll do like the air quotes like Cassidy did. That was cool. I'm not that hip, but what the heck. One of the people you know and love who makes everything better just because you know they are there, in those quotes again, and only a phone call away. I will miss him so much. We will take time tonight at our meeting to actually acknowledge Gerry and his many contributions to the city of Temecula and our entire area. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing. They're gonna actually stop the meeting tonight and acknowledge Gerry. Not only was she not, yeah, exactly. And also, Marianne called me live and said, we're not only going to do that, we're going to actually acknowledge Gerry at one of our city council meetings. We're going to stop the meeting. We're going to have all the family in and whoever would like to come in the next couple months. So we'll let everybody know. So it's going to be like a Gerry Wilson night at the city council. I mean, that's pretty awesome honor right there. Riverside County Supervisor and his wife, Kathy, Supervisor Chuck Washington and his wife, Kathy, they're actually watching virtually this evening. Chuck wanted to relay the message that I adjourned our Tuesday Board of Supervisors meeting in Gerry's memory, and we will be sending out an official proclamation citing that adjournment. So basically, when they ended the meeting on Tuesday night, which was the first time that Chuck was in a public setting, they stopped the meeting. They acknowledged Gerry Wilson. We're talking about the whole entire county. These are the people who run the entire county. They stopped the meeting. They said some kind words, and then they put an amazing proclamation together, and they rushed this. Usually these take weeks to get. Chuck wanted it to be here this evening for me to present to Rosie Wilson. So that's the nice acknowledgement right there from the Riverside County. Kathy and I truly love Gerry, and he will be missed. This one's actually pretty cool as well. Gerry had a good friend that he met here at our, I think when they met was actually a New Year's Eve party, Reince Priebus, who's a former chief of staff of the White House and the chairman of the Republican Party, both former. He has a big law firm back in Washington, D.C., and they became fast friends after meeting at one of our New Year's Eve parties. And I reached out to Reince in the last few weeks when things were somewhat bleak, and so didn't Mick, brother-in-law Mick, and had some conversations live and some text messages, and he certainly wanted to send some kind words. So he said, "We mourn the passing of the great Gerry Wilson, a man that always lit up the room with his bright spirit, a witty sense of humor, and love of people. He was an American cowboy of sorts that will always be remembered as one of the kindest and happiest people that everyone loved to be near. Gerry Wilson is a true American story of risk, family, faith, and patriotism. He will be greatly missed." I just wanted to share a couple stories here, and then I'll cut out of here because I know Gerry would definitely want us tipping back some martinis or some wine. It's interesting. He always said, and I hadn't heard it tonight, maybe Bill's going to close with this or whatever, but he always said, you know, like, people would ask, what do you think the best wine is here? Or what do you think I should buy? And he always said, basically, the one that you like is the one that you should buy. And that's, in your mind, that's the best one there is. If you like it, go ahead and buy it and enjoy it. So I wanted to share a story. My friend Mike Formella wanted me to share this story, that Gerry would join him on Saturdays during the football season. Gerry was a huge college football fan, and Mike Formella, a good friend of ours and family friend, would have him over at the house. And again, there's 40 years between these guys. And this guy would have him literally doing shots. When the Bruins would score, he literally would have my father-in-law doing shots at his house up until, less than 5 years ago. And I'm like, "Mike, what are you doing?" So Libby actually showed up at his house one day. I don't know if she was there to pick up Gerry or whatever, and he was literally doing a shot in the middle of it. And Libby's like, "What are you doing to my dad?" So he had that competitive spirit. He was going to kind of go along and have the fun that the group was having as well. Mick mentioned earlier about his incredible love of books, and he was incredibly well read. And one of the stories I wanted to share is our boys, and Gavin wasn't able to make it here this evening. He's in Tennessee. But Gavin and Hayden, when Gerry would come over to babysit the kids when they were little, he could not say no to the grandchildren. He literally couldn't say no. So when they were in bed getting ready to fall asleep and he would start reading them books, they would ask for one more book and one more book and one more book. Well, he would just continue to read, and we would show up many nights, many Friday nights, many Saturday nights after softball games or whatever, and there would be 8 or 10 books stacked on the guy's chest with 2 kids on his chest, all 3 of them passed out. He literally would read until he fell asleep. He couldn't say no to these grandkids. So I wanted to share that story because I think that just shows the kind of man that guy is. I also wanted to acknowledge, I grew up in the New England area and have lots of relatives in Phoenix and all over the country that they've been sending their blessings and prayers. I had a very, very tough, and I still struggle with it. I lost my twin brother 2.5 years ago, and the support The support that my wife has given me since the day my twin brother passed away is unreal. It's not even measurable. And I feel like I pale in comparison to the support that she gave me now in a time that she has been worried about this moment for years, if not decades, that her hero passed away. So I just want to publicly acknowledge that my wife is just an amazing, amazing person, and I know why. Because her parents did an amazing job raising you, and you just come from a great stock. So thank you, Libby. Appreciate you. I wanted to share an expression because it just keeps ringing in my head, and I'm sure you all have heard it. Whenever there was someone that would mention, like, that was a great round of golf, that was a great wedding, he would always come back and say, and wasn't that a wonderful round of golf? And wasn't that a wonderful party? He would just, and I literally can't get it out of my head, and it's so cool. Like, I put my head on the pillow, and that's kind of the ringing that I hear. So I really appreciate that. His Midwest charm is something I think that not only carried him through his life, but it's trickled down through the spirit of our winery and the staff. I say all the time that we generally don't have to fire anyone out here. The people that don't feel comfortable in that kind of Midwest charm, they just leave, okay? So, no, it does. It just happens. I say it all the time. The Midwest charm is amazing. You know, when you have these people that were born in Iowa, born in Minnesota, and they brought that incredible feeling here, and our staff has just incredibly adopted that. And I know that there's weekly meetings and everything like that, and we have a procedure book and everything, but at the end of the day, if they just looked at Rosie and Gerry, they could peel so many things out of that, and I think they have. And I'm just incredibly proud of the staff that we have here, the management team. Bill's doing an amazing job as the CEO. Thank you for the continued leadership. Mick and everybody else as well. We love the staff here. We feel like they're part of our family, and so I want to just end with. I always told Gerry that I'm the luckiest guy in the world for being blessed with he and Rosie's daughter, Libby, and I know I've already acknowledged her. Libby literally has been worried for so many years for this time, and I just wanted to let you all know that yes, she is struggling. It is a roller coaster. It's a very, very difficult time. But she's managing actually incredibly well. Your dad would be so, so proud. And I can tell you the last engagement that Libby had with her dad, I was there. I was very fortunate and blessed to be there. And here's a guy that was struggling. He actually had his arms were actually tied to the bed because they weren't sure how he was gonna react. But there was enough room for him to reach out and grab Libby and grab her shirt and her sweatshirt and pull her in for a hug and a kiss. I mean, this is like his 24 hours before he passed. He had that kind of passion and that kind of energy to pull his daughter in and send her off with that thought in her mind. And I was fortunate and blessed enough to actually be able to capture that moment. So I do have that picture. I'm so happy that we were able to do that. We all know that Gerry was Libby's hero. He's now in heaven, shining that bright, bright light down on us. And I just want to say for all these dignitaries and our family all over the country that we want to say, God bless you, Gerry, and God bless America. Amen.
Test.
This is great. You know, I learned something tonight. I lived with a saint for 67 years. I'm sort of casual tonight. I haven't had anything to drink, so he was quite a guy, wasn't he? I tend to sometimes be a little snippy. And no, it's okay. It's okay, Rosie. It's okay. And then I'd unsnip. Gerry was a people person. He loved people, and the people loved him back. When he was in high school, his friends called him a babe magnet. You girls know. Fortunately, I was so proud of him, and I didn't get jealous. I just was proud to be his wife. His dad used to tell a story about they had a sort of steps up to their house, and the girls would come and sit on the steps hoping that Gerry might go to the movie with them or something. And Gerry would come out of the door and say, "Hi, girls," and go off to the movie all by himself, and those girls would... That was Gerry. And sort of, he just had a magic touch. His dad was so proud of him. He just, when Gerry was around, he just was just happy. And I think we all were. I was told not to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it. Well, one of the things... What? Okay. Okay. Well, one of the reasons that it was so easy for Gerry to go was that I had a friend whose stomach burst and she died and went to heaven. And all these people came running up to her, and she said, "I didn't know any of them. And I'm your great-grandfather Harry. I'm your great-aunt Mary." They were all there to greet her. So Gerry knew that he was going to be greeted. And his mother was killed when he was 3.5 years old. And all he remembers, they put him on a chair so he could look in the coffin to see his beautiful dead mother. Isn't that terrible? I was just aghast. But that was another time. So I would love to have been there to see her welcome her little boy. So I asked Barb, I said, "Well, were the roads gold?" And she said, I'm like this. I'm just, and she said, "No," but she said everything was pastel and everything was soft. She said, "The only word I can think of is ethereal." But then she didn't, and I said, "Did you see Jesus?" And she said, "Well, I didn't get enough time there, but I saw him in a distance." And then she gets this message, "Your family can't let you go. They need you. They need you." And she was in surgery by that time. And so I don't want to go back. I don't want that pain. I like it here. But she had to go back. So she was telling the doctors about this when she had her follow-up call. And they didn't believe her. And she said, "Well, you said this, and you said this, and you said this." And they said, "How do you know?" She said, "I was hovering over you." And then she came back. They brought her back. So Gerry had that to look forward to, and I think we all do. Thank you.
How do you follow that? Each and every one of us here, I think what we all need to do is support Rosie. So we're all taking turns going up to the house, having dinner, watching movies, reminiscing. And I encourage each and every one of you here to also engage with Rosie. Because Rosie, well, yeah, Gerry's a saint. But so is Rosie. Rosie The two of them have made a team for 67 years, and they've shown us how to love unconditionally. They've shown us what to do and how to do it. And it's up to each and every one of us to be better husbands, better fathers, better friends, better coaches, better mentors, better teachers. Just be better. So, if you want your roses pruned, invite Rosie over for cocktails or something and barbecue, and pretty much she will, my garden up there, Jennifer, my beautiful wife, and God bless you, they take the dogs. Rosie and her have a dog date, basically. And these dogs go crazy, and Rosie's pruning all my flowers. And they just blossom again and again and again. And they're just so beautiful. So thank you, Rosie. We're going to have a wedding there next year. So those flowers need to be pretty special. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that. I'm probably not going to do that. But what I do want to do, and I forgot the card on the desk. Let me get it. It's been said before, but this was an amazing card, and thank you all for I got so many cards and so many texts and so many emails and so many things and support. And every time I'd read them, I'd freaking cry. But this one touched me because it was from Fred Renzoni. And, he's a father of Rob Renzoni. And he started a winery with his son. And together, they're kind of like 10 years behind us in life. 10 years my junior, 8 years Gerry's junior, and they're kind of following the thing. And he says, as some people journey through life, they leave footprints of kindness and love, courage and compassion, joy and faith. Even when they're gone, the trail they've left behind continues to inspire us. That inspired me. And all Gerry wants us to do is continue his legacy of loving others. And people say that, those are big shoes to fill. So I got some big shoes. And they're uncomfortable as hell. But I'm going to wear them. And I'm going to walk in Gerry's footsteps. And I'm going to love more. And if my team, all the 21 people that I asked to come up, or 18 or however many, we're going to do a toast to Gerry. But where are they? They listen so well. I said, come up to the left side of the stage when I get up here. And so Gerry loved his country, as you well know. And we're going to do something that I'm pretty sure nobody else has done. But Gerry loved a 21-gun salute. So we don't have guns, we have corks. So we're going to do a 21 cork salute. And these are all employees, old, new. They've been with us for years. They've been with us for months. Some have moved on to better pastures like this guy who's making a freaking killing in real estate. This guy's following in his footsteps, but still works here. So come on up, everybody, peel those suckers off. And soon thereafter, a 21-gun salute, you always play taps. And page 98 in the book is a picture of a gentleman playing sax at one of our jazz concerts. And he's here tonight to do a rendition of taps via sax. And that's Eric Darius, and I'm honored and privileged to have him here. So get over here, man. Come on. This guy, he looks like Kobe Bryant with a saxophone. Look at this guy. Look at that guy. So, all right. Everybody got him? Ready. Aim. Fire. Don't spray. No spray. All right, guys. Work the crowd. Play some taps. And then we'll do a toast. Go fill up some glasses. He just learned that song yesterday. All right, I need a glass. Told you they're too big. Can't fill them yet. Not even gonna try. To Gerry Wilson, who left a imprint on each and every one of us, and I truly believe he made each and every one of us better. And now it's up to us to make each and every one of us around us better. To Gerry. Cheers. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for live streaming. We do have dinner available over here if you're starving, and we got both sides. We've got wine in the tasting room. We've got wine over here. We got wine over there. We got beer over here. We got champagne over here. Gerry wanted a celebration. We're going to celebrate. We're not going anywhere. Chill out, relax, enjoy. Great people around here. Introduce yourselves and just love on each other. Cheers to Gerry.